Hello and welcome to this submission for Winback Covert Operations on the N64. I'll be running this on the Nintendo Switch. The difficulty will be set on easy, category any percent. The estimated time will be 55 minutes from the start, which will be once I click story. And it will end on the final shot against the last boss, Cecile. And we'll get things underway in 3, 2, 1, go!
This way!
Alright, so I'm Joseph Joestar 316, and this is Winback. Originally on the N64 in '99. Came out for the PS2 as a remake a couple of years later. And this was released as part of the Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack 4 years ago. So right away, we're already going to start breaking the game by going out of bounds from stage 1 into what is the perimeter of stage 2, which I'm just spamming cover while wedged in that corner. Alright, so even though I'm in stage 1 still, this is technically, well, a partially loaded stage 2. But what we're doing here is just going across this empty lot into the door that normally loads into the beginning of stage 3. Which is where easy any percent really begins in my book, because it involves perhaps the most important but yet also annoying aspect to this run, which is getting shot out of bounds with a guard's help. Not that guard. Alright, so what I'm going to do here is shoot a sensor on the other side of these containers. It requires a very fine line of precision, so there we go. Alright, so that guard right there that I just shot in the back of the leg is going to be our assistant. So I'm going to go up to this truck here, wedge into the corner.
Over there!
And, alright, first try, let's go. So what I did there is I got shot on a specific angle from the guard while also being wedged in the corner, which, provided with the right damage animation from Jean-Luc, it allows me to clip through the truck and just follow the inner wall perimeter, so I can, you know, follow it along. Now, the old route used to use that same out-of-bounds method, follow the wall, and then load into the beginning of the office, which is stage 4. However, this is the updated route, which involves getting the rocket launcher earlier. In the old route, we would acquire the rocket launcher to skip things later on throughout the game, right before the Ryan boss fight, which is part of the way into the office part of the, the game. So what we're gonna do now is get the rocket launcher, which is on top of this building that I just lowered the ladder to. And what this is gonna provide is earlier opportunities to go out of bounds and going through locked doors, which normally would not be permissible, in the older routes of this category. So we're just gonna go through this part of the facility, climb on top to grab the rocket launcher. There it is. Also gotta shoot that sensor so I can actually complete the stage. There we go. And as you may notice throughout the game, I'm ignoring the majority of the guards. Only certain ones, like that one earlier, where I needed to be shot out of bounds. Other guards have to be neutralized in order for a stage to be completed. But in most other cases, I will just be running right past them. Alright, so we're just gonna go right over there, like that guard was saying. And I'm just gonna load into stage 4 right here. And into our first boss fight, which is against Leela. It may seem like a very intimidating fight, but all we gotta do is just stay in cover, trade shots with her while she does her counter fire. And then we're gonna do this a couple of times until she starts to move. And that is the Leela fight. Casually it may seem like an intimidating fight, but in the speed run, it's a fairly straightforward fight. Just trading shots with her you know, back and forth, and then where she moves could be a bit random. So right now we're starting the office section. The game is split up into 4 parts. There's Outer Ground, which is the first 3 stages. Office, which covers like the next dozen or so. It ends on stage 13. And then after that is the factory. And finally with the control center, which is the end game of this run. So what we're going to do here is where the new route takes over from the old route, which is clipping through this door. Right, so it's using the same method as, you know, prior runs, but we're going to be clipping through this door earlier. All right, so there we go. So normally that door is locked. You would have to go all the way around the sewer area. But in here, we just clip right through that door, skip all the enemies that would normally load in, except for those 3. All right, so these 3 we do have to take out, otherwise we cannot complete the mission. All right, so with those 3 out, we could just complete that one. Now, I guess I could explain briefly what the plot of the game is. So Winback is a, you know, situation where terrorists take over this control facility, which, you know, houses, you know, weaponry and technology, which controls a super weapon satellite, you know, indicated as Gulf, G-U-L-F. And it has a 3-hour cooldown charge in between shots. And Jean-Luc is part of a counter-terrorist group known as SCAT, which they are set to, you know, basically go in, stop the bad guys, you know, stop them from using the satellite even further. And of course, in the midst of all of that, we're dealt with some pretty terrifying obstacles. You know, laser traps, explosive boxes, turrets, some of which we'll have to deal with, and others that we'll happily skip as we get there. So the name of the game is just to get to the control center in less than 3 hours, which thankfully for this run submission, we won't have to worry about being that late.
Over there!
So like I said, for the most part, we're just, you know, running past guards as I need to. Some I have to take out for reasons of if I get detected, it makes other guards spawn in some places. Some of the guards I do take out actually is partially manipulation, meaning if I take out a certain guard or bypass some guards and leave them, you know, upright, it prevents other ones from spawning in. All of which is, you know, meant for just, you know, being as optimal as I can.
Over there!
Oh, thank you, guard. Yeah, see, they yell at you a lot. Sometimes they give you directions and whatnot.
As in from Sarkozia?
All right, so right here is where things start to get a little interesting. So I'm gonna go into this corner, swap to the rocket launcher, and all right, so I'm out of bounds. But what I'm gonna try to do here is load the exterior of what is a, you know, outer balcony by trying to partially touch this door. And okay, so on occasion that's gonna happen. So what I'm trying to do is load the outside of this building without clipping back inbounds to do so. All right, so I'm gonna try it again. It's a little fidgety, just gotta approach the door. I mean, even though it looks like just like an empty door right now, but once I get it in just the right spot, and the camera's gonna get a little spazzy. See, there we go. Now, normally you're not supposed to be able to get here. That door is locked. And this door brings you down to the bottom door, which then, according to the game, says, hey, you found the first of 5 bombs, even though I'd never actually picked up that first bomb yet. All right, so now we're gonna do this again, except we're gonna go, oh, okay, well, not back in bounds. All right, so try it again. All right, so we're out of bounds again, but this time we're on the first floor. We just did the out of bounds glitch on the second floor where I was just at. And what I'm doing here is giving a really wide berth on this out of bounds maneuvering. And the reason is, even though some rooms are not loaded in, if you as the player walk into that space, you'll partially load in, which will make it very difficult to get yourself out when you're not intending to, be in there. So I'm just going in a really wide turn just to ensure that I'm only going to load into the room that I'm intending to, which is in here, right where that cardboard box is. And so what this is going to do is load me into what is the bathroom, even though it looks like a whole lot of nothing. Oh, hey, look, a bomb. All right, you might be wondering, well, what in the heck just happened there? Well, I just navigated myself to the bathroom, which is now visible. Picked up the second bomb, which, again, just through, practice, I am able to just maneuver somewhat in the, what I call the abyss, where you just can't see anything. So I just went all the way around, loaded into the bathroom, picked up the bomb. The game, like I said, already acknowledges that I picked up the first of 5 bombs, even though I never actually picked it up, but just a story flag to trigger it is enough. Alright, so now we come back into, oh lord, what happened in here? Yep, somebody went hog wild with planting all these explosive boxes. It's not exactly a fun room to be in when they go off. Alright, so I'm gonna try my best not to die here. Okay, there we go. Yeah, so in that kind of room, when one box goes off, it sets off a chain reaction, and there's very little protection in there from, the explosions where you just don't get killed instantly. But thankfully, since I survived it, I get to move on. Oh, how nice of this guy to open up the door. Alright, so normally we used to use C4 to clip through this gap. Instead, we're just going to use the rocket launcher to be able to do that. And what happens with the rocket launcher itself, since I don't think I've explained that quite yet, is there's a cover mechanic in the game which you as the player can go into cover against walls and objects. And for whatever reason, when you swap to the rocket launcher while in cover position, Jean-Luc kind of gains a brief state of, permissibility where he's allowed to squeeze through gaps and doors and corners of a hallway like I just did earlier. And it basically allows the player to clip through objects and go out of bounds. It doesn't work everywhere. It's only in certain places where, where this kind of tech works. And so the rocket launcher is really the key to it all, not for its destructive power, but just for the fact that it allows us to maneuver through parts of the game differently. Alright, so what I did now is just, raise the water level of this, this quarry here, and I'm just gonna make my way to that door. Alright, so at times when I'm not, interacting with the guards, or if I'm not neutralizing them, I'm just staggering them just by shooting once or twice. Because as you can see, every time I get shot, I get mini-stunned, which is very annoying to put up with over a long period of time, but it also works the same against the enemies, which comes in very handy when you're trying to, cut through corners, especially with multiple guards around. Alright, now this area may seem familiar because, well, I was just back here, and as you can guess, yep, that's right, we're gonna go out of bounds again. So same thing, just lamp in the corner, whip the rocket launcher, just lets me clip through that seam in that corner. And instead of going the long way around, we're just gonna go this direction here. Alright, so I'm gonna walk up into what's a non-loaded hallway, and then as soon as I get over this wall, it's gonna load me into this room, and I'm gonna do the rocket launcher clip to get through that door, which we're not supposed to go there yet. This ladder is the end of the stage.
Sarkozian? As in from Sarkozia?
That door I just loaded into is actually what exits the office complex entirely. However, the loading trigger for the final door is not there yet, which is why I had to clip through that door to get back inbounds to where I needed to be. Oh yeah, there's Tom, one of the scat teammates. He's trying to figure out the passcode to to an elevator, and then he just, I don't know, kind of told us to leave. He's busy. And then I would say, yeah, no problem. We're just busy speedrunning, doing a submission video. Ah, thank you. Yeah, did I ever mention that the guards are very helpful in this game? I mean, there technically is a map. Sometimes it can be straightforward to read. Other times it can be very confusing, especially if you haven't played the game before. But as I always say, sometimes you don't need the map, you just need the guards. They just kind of yell at you where to go. Okay, so what I did there is turn off the laser grid to this trap over here. And I'm just gonna run through this group of guards. And onto our next boss fight, which is against Leon, who is guarding one of the 5 bombs. Alright, so he may look scary with his shotgun. But we're just gonna stay put and cover, trade shots at them with the handgun, while jamming to the boss music. Yep, that is the tragedy of Leon the Hunter. Okay, so we picked up the 3rd of 5 bombs, and then in context, some of Jean-Luc's other teammates, Jake and Lisa, were able to find the other 2 bombs, which saves this facility from being blown up. So now we can just go right back to where we were earlier in stage 5, where that elevator was, because Tom had now just figured out the passcode to that elevator to access it. But then along the way, we find out that Tom was assassinated. Man, his sacrifice shall not be in vain, as briefly as I knew him. But before he died, he actually wrote out the passcode to the elevator on the floor using his blood, which then Jean-Luc will take that to the elevator to, advance the mission, because again, in order to access the control facility, normally there's 2 points of access. One, which is the express elevator, which is in this facility. The other is a freight elevator, which is further out of the way, but will get you there. So in the context of the story for this mission, the team is directed to the express elevator, with the exception of 3 of Team Scat, which are Steve, Matt, and Law, who were tasked with going to the freight elevator. So for right now, we're just maneuvering our way through the laser grid there, along with the guards. Thankfully, the traps have a constant cycle, meaning they follow the same pattern as you load in. Don't have to worry about timing so much. Okay, so that ends that rooftop. And yep, as you guessed it, there is still quite a bit of backtracking. Some different things in place, but still the same area. Alright, so like I said, we're making our way back to the express elevator. Yeah, someone did not think out this turret placement very wisely. Oh yeah, the weaponry. I don't think I really discussed it yet. So, your primary weapons that you have are the handgun, the SMG, and the shotgun. The handgun is overall your best weapon. It does sufficient damage, got good lock-on range, and you never have to collect ammo for it. It's infinite. And it's a 15-round magazine, which is plenty to deal with for pretty much every enemy in the game. Alright, your next weapon is the submachine gun, SMG, which is a 30-round magazine weapon. Has more lock-on range than the pistol. The reload time's a little bit longer, and you do have to collect magazine you know, for it throughout the game, which can be dropped by enemies, or it's just found globally throughout the game. And then lastly is the shotgun. Best up close range weapon. Pretty minimal lock-on range. But it's good for close encounters and when enemies are grouped together. Okay, so it looks like I'm stuck in purgatory, but I'm actually trying to load into what's a stairwell here, and I'm just trying to use the map as a reference to just get an idea of where I'm at. So, alright, so I'm loaded back in. Alright, so I'm gonna try to load myself back. Alright, so this could be a little, it's gonna be a little fussy here. So, there we go. So, what I did there was I did the same out-of-bounds trick with the rocket launcher that I did before, except this time I was loading into that stairwell, even though I wasn't at the right level for it. And I had to maneuver around a few times to kind of get the game to recognize that I'm, you know, back in bounds where I should be. Alright. Alright, so, well, you guessed it, they redecorated it again. Alright, so instead of all the abundance of explosive boxes, they installed an array of laser grids here, one of which could be disabled on the other side of that wall, and yada yada, but you know what, we ain't got time for that. So we're just gonna clip through this gap, except this time we're just gonna use the C4 while running into that gap. The reason why we don't use the rocket launcher clip there is there's actually a laser beam along the part of that that gap that we don't want to touch. Whereas the C4 will actually push you through right where you need to be without being too close to the laser, because lasers in this game, if you touch it once, regardless of how you do it, is an instant death. Even on easy, it's an instant death. Oh yeah, so this is Ryan. He's guarding the express elevator. Uses SMG on occasion, he throws grenades. You know, and just like before, we're just trading shots with them. You know, and then we're gonna be like, stop right there! But in the end, Brian got mad about losing, and then he blows up the control panel to the elevator. And we had to come back and tell our other teammates, like, oh yeah, sorry guys, but the express elevator's gone. You know, the guy blew it up. So we're gonna have to hightail it over to the factory section, which is scripted, you know, per the game's story. So we're gonna go through the sewers, and I'm gonna try to do another rocket launcher skip here, where I'm gonna try to clip through this row of boxes. And here we go, first try. So just like doors, the rocket launcher, when used in certain situations, could get you through obstacles like those row of boxes, which normally you would have to follow it all the way through and, you know, shoot some guards while, you know, you're waiting it out. You know, it takes a really long time. Alright, so we're making our way back up to the surface. Because this time we're gonna go through the office lobby again, except this time we're gonna load into the hallway that I'm meant to exit the office levels from. Earlier I loaded into it just to, you know, get through a door to go to a ladder. Well, we're gonna go to the exact same hallway again, except we're gonna, you know, leave through there. Oh, don't mind me, fellas. Yep, just passing through. Alright, so we're back up in this hallway again. And as he gets it, yep, we're gonna go out of bounds again. Alright, and so it's gonna be the same maneuver as I did before. Except I'm just gonna follow it all the way through until it loads back into the... where those metal doors were from before. Okay. There we go.
Over there!
Alright, so we're just gonna shoot that box, which should take out 2 of those guards. The last one we can ignore. And that is the end of the office level.
As in from Sarkozia?
So now we're loading into what is the beginning of the factory section of the game. So, as before, we're just gonna run through as many of the guards as I can. Only dealing with the ones that I need to.
Over here!
Alright, so these three I have to take out just for the... You know, for the sake of being able to do this, this skip right here. Because I do not want to be shot at while trying to do this. Alright, there we go. So, same thing I did in the sewers, but just on this level here. Alright, now I'm going to try to go through what's supposed to be a boss fight room. But we're not going to really load into it. Right, at least not all the way. So we're loading into a, you know, partially interior of what's going to be the next boss fight. And then once we interact with this door... And voila! Got our next boss, which is Sergeant Thunder, whose name is quite the oxymoron because he uses the flamethrower.
Over there!
Alright, so I'm gonna try my best not to get killed, because his flamethrower does deal quite a bit of damage, and it lags the screen every time it, you know, reaches anywhere near me. Alright, so I'm trying... Yeah, there's a bit of that frame rate lag. I was... Oh, no. Alright, so on occasion that can happen. Alright, so I believe I have to redo the beginning of that stage, which, you know, it's okay. It's part of what the estimate is for. So, same thing, I'm just gonna maneuver my way back to that room where Sergeant Thunder was. And the reason why I had to start from the beginning of this stage is because the game works off a checkpoint system. Some checkpoints are loaded when you interact through certain doors, and other ones are loaded when you complete missions. Alright, so I'm just gonna do this skip again. And then clip through this door again. Okay, there we go. Alright, now hopefully I won't get hit by the explosive barrel this time. That was in the room. I was intending to use it against, you know, the boss. So we'll just give this another try. Alright, so there's Sergeant Thunder. Just gonna run away from him. Alright, so there we go. So he takes damage from both gunfire and the explosive barrels and boxes in this room. Alright, one more shot. Boom. Alright, so that was Sergeant Thunder. You know, makes quite the entrance as well as a dramatic exit with him exploding. Alright, so moving on. We're gonna make our way back into that building where I was just at on the second level, which interacting with that terminal right there is gonna turn the power back on. It was turned off right as that boss fight ended.
Over here!
Alright, and then I'm just gonna shoot this guard for safety. And we're just gonna clip through this pile of boxes here. Oops. Okay, there we go. Alright, now again, normally you're not supposed to be able to go through here, but I don't know, for whatever reason, the door as well as the stairs leading up to it work. And then what we're going to do here is lean up against this wall in order to get line of sight on that sensor. Right there. Turns off the electric circuitry to this door so I can open it. Grab the key, or rather just a key. And normally you would have to go through this gondola ride and, you know, it's, I don't know, kind of boring. So instead we're just going to take a shortcut outside. Wow, look at that interior of that building. Alright, so we're gonna load from the outside to go back inside by opening this door, even though it looks like I'm going in, but the game thinks I'm leaving. Alright, and again, the game just thinks, oh, hey, you have the key and you're opening this door, so therefore you must be exiting the stage. Alright, so I'm gonna do here is go up against this container while aiming the camera on an angle so I can get the interact hitbox on this ladder that I just climbed down on. It's what I call the ladder grab. It just allows you to have a nice direct shortcut to begin this stage. It negates having to go through parts of what's fairly linear stage. It's actually one of the longest stages in the factory because there's a lot of traversing up and down ladders and, you know, backtracking.
Over there!
Which, again, we're just gonna skip through, you know, most of the guards as I have been. Alright. So, we're back in the factory assembly room in here. And the goal here is to disable the electric circuit to the door that exits the stage. However, getting there is anything but simple. So I'm just gonna take out those guards. Now, normally that ladder right there actually will lead you to the end of the stage, but we cannot go there yet. Instead, we gotta go to the ladder, which is shown right in the center of the room here, which will lead to where the sensor is for the trap door. Okay, there we go. Also, for safety, I'm just gonna blow that box up because, again, gunfire is fairly mitigated in terms of damage taken. The stun effect is probably more of an annoyance than the gunfire damage itself, but melee attacks from guards, knives, and explosions are all sources that deal the most damage, you know, compared to, you know, all the other sources. So those I try to avoid as much as possible. Other ones, I just kind of have to take that risk. Alright, so we're gonna have to go up to where, well, where that guy with the shotgun was that shot me. So we're gonna have to go up here and around. And then down this ladder, which is where the sensor is that I need to destroy. Okay, there it is. Alright, so now that the door to exit the stage is now open, I will now just make my way back into the assembly room, navigate my way back to where the other ladder was and exit.
Over here!
Ah, thank you. It was just kindly reminding, you know, where the exit was, you know, which was over here. Alright, so on occasion I just check my inventory of weapons, you know, just double check ammo. Which, like I said, the SMG and shotgun, you have to find ammo for it throughout the game. The pistol's infinite, so we never have to worry about it. And the rocket launcher's a limited use weapon, meaning once I run out of it, the rocket launcher's gone until I, you know, acquire another one. But the rocket launcher will not be used, like, directly until really the very near end of this run. Because it's used mostly as a, you know, out-of-bounds item.
Over there!
Alright, just gonna dodge that gunfire, exit the door, and that's the end of that stage. Okay, so now we're going through this other part of the factory complex. Doing some very intense CQC maneuvers, which is just a rigid karate chop to the back. And then just clip through this gap. And then load into this other part of the building. haven't gotten enough of that CQC chop. There we go. Bam. Alright, so I'm gonna blow that up. Destroy this box. And then once you cross this fence line, the guards just disappear. I know it's kind of terrifying, but it is a thing.
Sarkozian? As in from Sarkozia?
Alright, so now we're loaded into, you know, this building, and I was just on the rooftop floor. And this normally would be a fairly lengthy stage, a lot of, you know, back and forth and disabling locks, and sad we're not going to do any of that. We're just going to clip right through this door using the rocket launcher. Okay, usually just takes a few attempts, depending on how you're lined up with it and, you know, the camera angle. So there we go. So normally you'd have to go all the way around, shoot the lock to this door, which would unlock it, but the game thinks, hey, if you turn on the power, then you must have destroyed the lock. Alright, so enemies are loading in. We're just gonna blow those up. Just gonna shoot that guard for safety. Alright, so I'm gonna try to get through this on one cycle, although it is very difficult because of a box that tends to blow up, which would interfere with getting there in one cycle. It just saves you a few seconds over not getting it. Oh, thank you. Yeah, just kindly reminding me where the exit was. Oh, there we go. Alright. Alright, so we're on the ground level again of this building. And we're going to be making our way to what is normally a boss fight with Duke. He uses a minigun. He's got explosives rigged up in, you know, parts of the room. And, you know, it's not really a long fight, but, you know, it's just kind of a tedious encounter. So, again, we're not going to be actually fighting Duke. Instead, we're just going to clip through the door using the same rocket launcher clipping tech from before. And load into a empty boss fight room. Alright, and not only does there not have a boss at load in, but normally there'd be guards, you know, all over the place here, stopping Jean-Luc from trying to reach the exit. But because I never had the boss fight happen, the enemy guards do not load here. Yeah, there's the other side of where I started, by the way. You know, it may seem like it was very far, but it was not.
Sarkozian? As in from Sarkozia?
So now I'm gonna go back to where I came from, which may sound like a pretty absurd thing to do. But what I'm gonna try to do is go out of bounds through the door. Okay, now I'm on the surface level where I was just at, even though it doesn't look like it. So I'm gonna go past this fence, stay close to the road here, and then I'm gonna try to load myself back into the sewers. Going right here. So, again, the game kind of thought I was on the ground level, but once I started walking over the part of the map that at least recognized I was supposed to be in, it just kind of plops Jean-Luc right down to the sewer level. Alright, so I'm going to try to do a very difficult skip here. It could save about a minute and a half if you get this first try. You know, however, like I said, it is very difficult. It's very, very rare if you get this on first try. So what I'm going to try to do is line Jean-Luc up in a very specific spot. And it's going to be just like the door clip, except it's going to try to go through this corner of the building and this electric fence, which is live. Okay. All right, one more time. All right, one more for good measure. Nah, that's okay. Like I said, it's a very difficult skip to do. And if you do it, it saves you a lot. You know, for world record, that is the recommended maneuver, which is to clip through that corner. So what I'm going to do now is just finish the stage as, well, almost intended. Except I'm going to try to clip through this gap, which sometimes it gets a little fussy. Come on. There we go. Yeah, so what I did is I clipped through the container and part of that wall of that building. And so what I'm going to do now is navigate my way up to this rail yard here to get to a higher vantage point. So I can shoot the sensor which controls the electric circuit to that door along with that wall I tried to clip through before. Okay, which is right here. Alright, and we're just gonna make our way back and hopefully exit the stage with no issues. Minus all the gunfire. Oh, pardon me. Yeah, so whenever Jean-Luc opens doors, he does not have iframes, except when you are exiting a stage. So some doors where I'm opening in the presence of guards is actually a fairly big risk. Just given the fact that, you know, I am completely exposed when I do that. Alright, so I clipped through part of that barricade to get to this part of this level faster. You know, and I just keep the rocket launcher equipped because it saves a little bit of time instead of Jean-Luc, like, going into cover, you know, doing the animation. Instead, he just kind of does this, you know, rigid 180. You know, just, you know, makes it go by a little bit faster. Alright, so I'm just gonna take out this... Well, try to take out this guard anyway. And then we're gonna make our way to the freight elevator, the thing I was just talking about, you know, towards the beginning of the game. Oh yeah, which way to the freight elevator again? I know one of these guys know. Alright, well, whatever it is, it's free. Alright, so we're down the freight elevator and up to our next boss fight, which is Gunt. Uses a rocket launcher, although it's not like the one that I have, except his missiles actually lock on and try to, you know, follow Jean-Luc wherever he is, except we're not gonna let him do that. We're just gonna attack him. He will attack in a consistent pattern, which is from right to left. And his missiles do not lock on very well at close range, and before I could even finish, that was Gunt. Alright, so now we're finally in the control center. The facility which houses the, you know, the super weapon, you know, Gulf satellite. Or rather the control room, which controls the satellite, which is now in orbit. So normally in this part of the game, it's, you know, a lot of tedious backtracking and, you know, a lot of nasty enemy encounters and traps and things that we don't want to have to put up with. So we're just gonna skip closer to, you know, the end game. You know, one elevator skip at a time, as I would say. So what I'm gonna do here is move up to this second level. Okay, and then I'll just have to take out this guard. And then clip through this door using the same rocket launcher tech. Okay, if he does that again, I'm gonna have to do something about it. Wow, that was a nice headshot. Oh, wow, so I guess now he wants to interfere. Yeah, it's kind of unusual that they do that. Most of the time, they just kind of shoot at the floor that Jean-Luc is on, not directly at him. Alright, so now we're coming up to what's one of the biggest stages in the run, which we're going to skip from stage 25 to 30. It's also one of the harder skips to do, aside from that thing I tried to do at the rail yard earlier. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to line up myself to the door. Shoot this guard that comes out of it without letting him pass through. Because what I don't want him to do is to move too far forward or too far back, because I want that door to stay open. And then what I'm going to do here is clip through this door, which would normally load up a boss fight with Banderas, which, again, we're not going to see him. And then we're going to clip into this elevator. Oh, or at least try to. Try it again. Yeah, it's a little tricky because it's trying to clip Jean-Luc into the interior of that elevator. And if it doesn't load in right away, it just kind of makes him run right back out of it. Alright, one more time. There we go. Yeah, that elevator is probably one of the harder ones to clip through in terms of doors. Like I said, it's a wider object. There's a little bit more variance when it comes to, you know, when you turn in. But for whatever reason, going up that elevator brings you right up to the second of the, you know, second to last stage of the game. I don't know, again, just for some reason, going through that elevator just kind of hits a story checkpoint that indicates that, you know, Jean-Luc did a series of things such as restoring power to the elevator, defeating some bad guys, and, you know, just, I don't know, it's a really handy skip, I gotta say. Alright, so we're gonna go through this door. Okay.
Over there!
Oh, thank you.
Over there!
Thank you. Yeah, like I said, there is a map, but, you know, the guards won't lead you astray.
Over there!
Man, it's so helpful. Only they wouldn't shoot at me. Alright, so I'm just gonna deal with those group of three, followed by another group, spawning right there. Do a backflip. Nice. Yeah, the guards with the handgun and the knife, when you defeat them, they're scripted to do a backflip. It's pretty funny. Alright, so I'm just gonna try to get myself to this door, which is pretty scary at times. Alright, so now we're up to this room, which is a heavily fortified barricade with, you know, a set of turrets, but they also have some explosive barrels lying around. They just seem to have an overabundance of them and just decided, yeah, we don't really want to store them anywhere else. Let's just put it right there. I'm sure nothing bad's gonna happen. So we could use that to our advantage just by blowing up one, which will set off a chain reaction of, you know, all the others. Then just pick up some ammo. Okay, now we're loading into this hallway, which is another story flag trigger, which we're just indicating that, you know, we saved Lisa. There she is. Who then tells us to go find Commander Dan, who was the one that was revealed to be the traitor, because, you know, members of the team were being assassinated one after the other, except no one knows who was doing it. Which is then soon to be revealed, even though I just spoiled it. Okay, I'm just gonna shoot those barrels before they push it. Alright, and then gonna load in here to take out these two guards. And then we're gonna use the rocket launcher. I know, actually using the rocket launcher, go figure, to actually shoot at that turret just moments before it makes contact, and then the turret gunner will shoot the box that's in front of me, partially damaging it, so I can, you know, shoot the rest. Alright, now we're gonna do some target practice with those two guards, because I don't want to have to deal with them on the way out. Alright, so we're coming up to the last leg of stages, because once we complete this stage, it will load into the final room, which is just 2 boss fights. And we're going to do the same thing I did earlier in the factory, except we're going to go backwards to progress. So we're just going to go through this corner, doing the same rocket launcher clip. Which in this case it's a little bit more difficult because, you know, the camera is in a really not such a convenient spot, which can make it a little bit janky trying to find the right spot. So there we go. Now, the rocket launcher clip skip was not found by me, but this use of it in this area I did find just out of curiosity one day when I started learning how to use that skip itself. Because this part of the control facility is notorious for killing speedruns before this skip was utilized. And I was able to just kind of use it, explore this purgatory of being out of bounds, and then figured, hey guys, did you know that if you just, you know, go out of bounds, walk into the abyss, and then just walk right where you're supposed to go, where that little red dot is on the map, and then you just eventually load into the final room? And then you just touch the door, and it's like, aha! You made it! Alright, so first up is Commander Dan, who was formerly the leader of the SCAT team sent to stop the bad guys. So we're just gonna use the barrels in the room against him. Trade headshots, and for memes I'm just gonna use the rocket launcher, even though it's not really any faster, but it's just funny if you beat him with the rocket launcher. Oh, there we go. Alright, so long story short, Commander Dan's related to the terrorist leader, who was from a war-torn region known as Sarkozia, which, you know, he later on explains his, you know, his motive for doing what he did. Part of which he said was fate, and he says this line which is iconic throughout the game, especially in the PS2 remake, because it's voice acted, which he then admits, half Sarkozian. Sarkozian? As in from Sarkozia? I know, just a light bulb moment went off in Jean-Luc's head there. So now we're up against Cecile, who is the terrorist leader. And his biggest weakness is the turret. So we're just gonna shoot that trap, and run's gonna end as soon as I hit him with the last shot. And that is Winback. No, Cecile, you are not invincible to bullets, let alone turret bullets. Like I said, Winback, it's a fairly challenging run. It does have some janky rigidity to it at times, but The skips and the glitches are what make it interesting. You know, overcoming frustrating obstacles in the game casually, while just, you know, making things end faster. Which, fun fact, there's actually multiple endings to this game. There's what I refer to as a, you know, good ending, neutral ending, and bad ending. All of which are tied to the game's in-game timer. Meaning if you reach that control room where I just fought the last 2 bosses in less than 3 hours, you qualify for the good ending, which, thankfully to speedruns, you are basically set for that. If you reach the control room after 3 hours, and then after 6 hours, which is the weapon being used repeatedly, you just get a pretty bum ending. You know, terrorists blew up more targets, you maybe stop the bad guys, but then you kind of feel bad about it later. So we're just gonna, you know, take what's left of the team, hop in the chopper, or rather I say, get to the chopper, and ride off into, well, I would say the sunset, but it's just too foggy to see it. So that is Winback Easy, 90%. You know, I've been running this game for 5 years, 4 years of this version. And the route has changed drastically over time, where it went from being an hour and a half to an hour 15 to an hour, to then breaching sub-hour, to now where we're under the, you know, 45-minute range, which, you know, I hope to, you know, reach there one day, but it is a very challenging run, and it's, you know, when it all works out smoothly, it's a pretty fun experience to, you know, try to dissect it all and, you know, try to make things work. So hopefully you guys were impressed with the run and, you know, enjoyed what you saw. And, you know, thanks again for watching, and I look forward to, you know, keep running this in the future. And thanks for your consideration.